So I want to talk to you about when something happens and you're on the primrose path with the butterflies and the rainbows and everything is all awesome and amazing, and then something bad happens. How do we respond to that, you know? Again, we go back to Romans 8:28. If God works all things to the good of those who love Him, then He's going to make something good out of something bad, right? So let's talk about Joseph. Who is Joseph? We know who Abraham was, I hope, if you remember. Shh, stop talking. You're distracting me. Anyway, we know who Abraham is from 2 weeks ago when my lovely Jennifer, there you are, was preaching about Abraham. Abraham, he's the father of many nations. God made him a promise. That promise was fulfilled through his son Isaac. So we have Abraham, we have Isaac, we have Jacob, and then we have Joseph. Ta-da! Joseph was the great-grandson of Abraham. He was Jacob's 11th son. His story starts in Genesis 37. He was 17 years old when it happened. How many people are 17 years old? Right now is when your journey begins if you are Joseph. So, Joseph and his 10 brothers, they are shepherds. And in verse 2 of Genesis 37, it says, he brought their father a bad report about them meaning his brothers. What's Joseph? He's a tattletale. Wah, wah. This behavior, combined with the fact that Jacob treated Joseph as his favorite son, did not sit well with the brothers. The brothers didn't like him very much. And then, on top of that, Jacob, he was having these dreams, right? And what were the dreams about? The dreams were that someday he would rule over his family. Ooh, Jacob, you just hit the trifecta. 3 things that your brothers don't like about you. Watch out. So, we go to Genesis 37, 10 through 11. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him. Even his dad didn't like the news. And said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous. They were jelly, people. They were jelly. But his father kept the matter in mind. I like that. His father kept the matter in mind. So he's like, well, maybe I shouldn't discount this. Maybe this was God. Let's stay tuned. So Jacob, he was a good father. I had to throw that in there. He even gave Joseph this highly decorated coat. A coat of many colors, if you remember your Sunday school days. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. He was hated by the brothers. So like any good brothers would do, they were like, we need to kill this dude. Let's just get rid of him. And they plotted to kill him. And then they were going to lie to their father Jacob about Joseph's death. However, thank goodness for Reuben. Reuben was the oldest brother, and he's like, guys, let's not kill him. I've got a better idea. Let's sell him to slave owners, traders. Let's make some money off of our favorite brother. So that's what they did. So they took his coat of many colors, and they ripped it up, they tore it up, they smeared some blood from a sheep, or does anybody remember what animal that was? Sheep. It was a bad situation. So they smeared some blood on the coat, went back to Jacob and said, Jacob, your beloved son is dead. He got eaten. So, and this began Joseph's uncertain path. How many know that you're on a certain path? We're all on an uncertain path, right? We don't know where we're headed to. We really don't know what God's plan is for us. But it gets revealed through time, right? So let's continue to fast forward through the story of Joseph because we are just beginning. Joseph, sold into slavery. Now we're not talking about just your normal everyday slavery. This was bad. This was bad. I'm just kidding about that. Slavery is bad. Exactly, it is bad. At that, being sold into slavery, you give up all your rights. You have no control over anything. They tell you when to sleep. They tell you when to work. They tell you when to do everything. Completely no longer in control. Joseph, he had a good thing going. Now he's a slave. So what happens? Joseph gets sold to the highest bidder. His name was Potiphar. Who was Potiphar, Kevin? Potiphar was one of Pharaoh's officials. He was captain of the guard, it says in the Bible. And he buys Joseph. So let's read Genesis 39, 2 through 6. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in the eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted his care to everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Joseph prospered. Joseph just got his life wrecked. He just got sold into slavery. And what do you think his attitude was? What do you think his mindset was? Woe is me. Oh, this is terrible. Lord, why'd you do this to me? He may have had that reaction, the first day or two. But at some point, he didn't forget who God was, And so, he prospered, So I want you to keep that in mind. I imagine Joseph, he probably went to God and he poured his heart out. And he said, Lord, I don't know why this happened. I don't know why this happened to me. But Lord, you're still in control of my life and you can use this for the good. So let's continue. Potiphar's wife. She was a great, great woman. No, she was not. She tries to seduce Joseph into adultery. Joseph, he refuses and he runs away. Good job, Joseph. And then she falsely accuses him of rape. Oh, Potiphar's wife, you're terrible. Even though Joseph is innocent, Potiphar throws him in jail, where presumably he will spend the rest of his life. Throw away the key. His life is really done now. So, let's recap. He's sold into slavery. That's bad. And then, like a Superman slap to the face, we go to prison now. So it's getting worse. Worse, people. However, if Joseph's history is true, some things are going to happen. So, Joseph, while in jail, he interprets the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker. Both interpretations prove to be true. What happens? The baker is put to death. The cupbearer is later released from jail, and 3 days later restored to his rightful position. But what happens? Genesis 4:40, 14 through 15. This is Joseph, and he's talking to the baker. But when all goes well with you, remember me. Now that wasn't right. It was the cupbearer, right? Yes, the cupbearer he's talking to. Joseph is talking to the cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. What do you think happens? Anybody know? Was the cupbearer like, okay, Joseph, you're the man, I got you. We're going to get you out of this prison. Did that happen? No. 2 years. 2 years passed. 2 years. And then in God's timing, 2 years later, the king himself has some troubling dreams. And the cupbearer remembers Joseph's gifts of interpretation. How convenient. How convenient. He's like, King, I know this guy, and I think this is going to get me some favor with you. So I'm gonna clue you in. Let's talk to Joseph. And so that's what happens. The king calls for Joseph and relates his dreams. He tells him the dreams that are going on. Joseph, he hears from the Lord in a moment. In a moment with God, your situation can change. He hears from God. He predicts these dreams. 7 years of plentiful harvest followed by 7 years of severe famine in Egypt. God not only reveals the dream, he's like, here, Joseph, here's the plan. This is what you have to do, and everything's going to be all right. So Joseph, he shares this with Pharaoh. Pharaoh's like, man, Joseph, there's something about you. There's something about you. You know things. You can interpret dreams. You even got a plan to fix my problems. I think I like you, Joseph. No more prison for you. In fact, I'm going to promote you. Joseph was put in second in command. Second in command. Only second to the king. A moment with God can change your life forever. You know, when famine strikes, Canaan is effective, and Jacob sends 10 of his sons to Egypt. The family. The famine hits. Jacob's like, we're hungry, boys. You need to go to Egypt. You need to buy some grain. While there, guess who they run into? Joseph. Ooh, Joseph. Fast forward. They run into Joseph. Brothers bow down to Joseph. Dream comes to pass. It fulfills the prophecy. Joseph, then, in his kindness and in his love, he reveals his identity to his brothers. He forgives their wrongdoing. He messes with them a little bit. He messes with them. And I like that so much. You know, go Joseph. But, you know, in the end, he had compassion on them. He loved them. And then Jacob and his family, they moved to Egypt to be with Joseph. Jacob's descendants stay in Egypt. A little too long. Some bad things happen. Moses, slavery. You can read the rest. But let's go back to Joseph. This is an awesome story. You know, Joseph did not know how his life was going to end up. He had every right, every reason to be mad, to be upset at God. You think Joseph asked why? Do you think he did? I think he did. I think Joseph asked why, you know? From the time that he was 17 until he was 30 years old, his life was filled with tragedy, hurt, and pain. He experienced a major betrayal, and then another major betrayal. And it kept getting worse. But if you go back and you read this word for word in Genesis, you're going to see that every time, wherever Joseph was put, he thrived. He thrived. And Joseph, he lived until he was 110 years old. So if we do the math, I hear the gears cranking out there. 80 years of his life was living the good life. Second in command, reunited with his family. I think it's safe to say God took care of Joseph for the rest of his days. James 1, 2 through 4. This verse has come to my memory in times and situations where I've been going through things. It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything." Who's ready to experience pure joy? Who's with me? Know what you're asking for? Did you read? We need to read that one more time. Let's clean our ears.
My ears are clean.
And read this again. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds." Trials of many kinds. That is bad stuff, you know? I've hit that. I've hit rock bottom before, and I've just said, "Lord, what is going on here?" But I remembered what your word says, and I should consider this pure joy. Didn't feel like pure joy at the time. Did not. But when I've come out of those seasons, there has been tremendous blessing when I honor God and when I'm obedient to Him, even when I don't understand, and despite whatever has happened to me in the situation. You know, one time, that even meant humbling myself and asking for forgiveness when, in fact, I had done nothing wrong. But that's what God told me to do, and so I had to be obedient to that. You know, I think Joseph, the secret to his strength and power that allowed him to thrive, that allowed him to succeed, that allowed him to have favor wherever he found himself was because of these three things. Joseph trusted God despite his circumstances. You know, and how many of us are so deeply affected by our circumstances, by the things that happen to us, by the words people say. You know, and those people, you know, it doesn't matter what they say all the time. It matters what God says. Number 2, Joseph never forgot God's character, which is always good. It's always good. It's always good. And it doesn't matter what your circumstance says. And number 3, I believe Joseph poured his heart out to God during those painful times. As we were singing Good, Good Father tonight, I just had this picture in my mind of Joseph being just completely torn into, completely distraught, completely messed up, just going before the Father and saying, Lord, I don't understand why this happened. Lord, I'm hurt. Lord, this doesn't feel good. I don't have any hope. I don't have any hope outside of you or beyond you. And I just feel like he just poured out every single thought, every single emotion, every person that was involved, all 10 brothers, and even his dad. He probably, the devil probably used that and just lied to him. But I believe that he poured his heart out to God and poured his heart out, And so it's so important. I want you to hear me. Hear me. When you get in these situations where you're confused, when you don't know what's happening, when it doesn't make any sense, it does you no good to keep it on the inside. No good. Because it's just going to build and it's going to grow and it's going to mess you up. It could even destroy you. But our response is God. God, come. There's nothing you can say to God that's going to scare him, that's going to make him upset at you. He's a good, good Father. How many times have we gone to our parents and, poured our heart out because something didn't go like it should? Maybe we got bullied at school. Maybe we got, in trouble. But, man, it feels so good to come and just pour your heart out, to mom and dad or to a friend. But, they don't have the answer. Who's got the answer? God's got the answer. So pour your heart out. Psalm 62:8. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. What's a refuge? It's a safe, or it's being safe or sheltered from danger, from trouble or pursuit. God is our refuge. As I was writing this message, I began to think about waiting on God. Waiting for God to tell me what the rest of the story is. God, how does it end? And I remembered this song when I was little in church. We used to sing this hymn. And I'm not going to sing it to you, but the lyrics go, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord, to wait. So I looked up this hymn, and God just reminded me, just in a moment. He's like, Kevin, this is who I am. Isaiah 40, 27 through 31. O Jacob, how can you say the Lord does not see your troubles? O Israel, how can you say God ignores your rights? Have you never heard? Have you never understood? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of all the earth. He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depths of his understanding. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youths will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. And I believe with all my heart this is what Joseph did. He remembered who his God was. He didn't let his circumstances change his outlook on life or what he was meant to do. The word says that the heart of the king is in God's hands, and he directs it like a river flows in whatever direction he wants. So it doesn't matter what your circumstance is. It doesn't matter if a parent lets you down, if a teacher led you astray, or you were hurt by anybody in the church. God is in control. And if you trust in him, you're going to thrive where you're at. That hurt is going to melt away. You're not going to be weighed down by that mess anymore. But the way that you do that is you've got to confess it. You ask God why, and you don't be afraid to do that. And you wait, and you listen. And he's going to speak. He's going to direct. And he is so, so faithful.